Hello, everybody. Welcome. This is Sarah Haas here with the Boss Body Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for spending your time with me here today. I am so excited. I have an amazing guest today, and you are going to love what she has to say. I have with me Dr. Dolores Fazzino. She is a nurse practitioner and she also has written numerous books in the areas of wellness, of self care, of stress relief. And when she works with her clients, she uses a blend of traditional medicine with a more holistic approach. So, really tapping into that body, mind, spirit that I am always talking about because you really can't separate the two. Everything that we think and feel and experience translates into what our body is doing and how our body assimilates it and how it reacts. So, Dolores, I know you have so much more to say on the topic, and that's why I am really excited to have you here because you can probably put it into words better than I can. So, thank you so much for being here with us.
Well, Sarah, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor and a privilege to be able to talk to your audience.
So I mentioned that you are a nurse practitioner. So you've been in healthcare for quite a while. Am I right?
Yes, I've been in healthcare for over, I'm going to cringe, 40 plus years. So I've seen a lot and I've seen a lot of things kind of come down the pike. And being a visionary as I am, I kind of see things happening way ahead of time than probably the average person. So in a way, it's a it's one of my gifts, and being able to see what's coming down into the future, I could basically guide people a little better as well. What
So you're intuitive, you're very sensitive. So you're not just looking at the lab reports, you're not just looking at the physical symptoms, that kind of thing. You're really tapping more into, I know they call you the energy whisperer. So you're tapping into that to the whole person, not
a-
just what's physically being presented in front of you.
Absolutely. And I think the best visual I could give people is this. You know, we have been duped into believing that all we are a physical body, which is a huge disservice because if you look at an iceberg, okay, and the tip of the iceberg is the physical, there's an underlying part of that iceberg that's underwater. And that's like our thoughts, our emotions, our beliefs, what we say to ourselves, and our connectedness to our inner wisdom and our spirituality. That's all underneath the surface or in the unconscious world or energetically what we can't tangibly see. Now, when we talk about energy, energy is everything. Actually, our physical bodies, Sarah and I sitting here and in the audience, this is a denser version of what energy looks like. Now, when you get to your thoughts and your beliefs and your emotions, whether or not you experience them or not, it's all energy, but it's invisible energy. It's like radio waves, but they're there.
Yeah, and I mean, that's just science. The entire universe is made up of particles of energy. That's what we're all made of. That's what every tree, every drop of water, every grain of sand, and that is what every
Absolutely.
cell in our body is all energy. That's what everything in the universe is.
That's right. Everything is energy.
And like you said, our physical body is the tip of the iceberg because we have all those things going on. And I always say, any thought you have, any feeling you have translates into a reaction in your body. Like if you are scared, your heart starts pounding and your breathing increases and you might get sweaty. Like that's just one example. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
stomach ulcers are another example of if you live a very stressful life, you're tense and your body reacts to all this other mind, body, spirit stuff. And that's why I love that you are bringing that all together so that the person can be fully whole and healthy.
Absolutely, because, you know, I've seen many people with their end physical creations of all of that invisible or under the surface stuff. And, a lot of times we have emotions, and, let's talk about emotions a little bit, because I think, you know, our society, especially here in the US, we've been taught that it's not okay to feel. It's not okay to express your emotions, especially the ones that we label not so nice, like anger, rage, I hate you, those type of things. We were told to be nice and put it in a little box and everything's just perfect. And yet, when we suppress or don't experience emotions, what happens is that it's energy. Okay. It's not being experienced. So, where does that energy go? It kind of accumulates in your energy field and eventually it crosses over into the physical body. So it's no surprise to me that people who are really stressed out, who don't, who, like suck it up, buttercup, instead of really feeling what you're experiencing, people end up creating a lot of interesting illnesses and problems in regards to their physical health, not only their emotional and mental, but it affects everything across the board. So what, is so important is that in order to feel, okay, believe it or not, you have to be in your physical body. I bet you people didn't know that. When you're in your head, a dead giveaway is that when you're intellectualizing your emotions, it's like, I think I feel. So there's a disconnect from being in your head and being in your body.
And by being in
Okay.
your body, you mean being in touch with what's going on
And in
physically,
the
mentally, and
present, yep.
emotionally.
And in the present moment, that's where you are able to access that information. When you're in your head, believe it or not, you're not in the present moment. You're contemplating tomorrow, trying to figure out why I did what I did yesterday, and then you're not in the present moment. There's also the essence of people trying to make something happen and controlling what's going on instead of actually allowing and experiencing. So when you drop from here down to here, it's not a this or that. You need both. However, we have been lopsided for way too long. We've been in doing mobile mode where we're constantly in motion and we just don't know how to stop to get to being at peace and at one with ourselves. So, one of the best things people could do to be in the present moment is to just take a deep breath first of all, so you drop your essence into your physical body, but also just allow yourself to be in your body. Okay. That can be done by doing any type of mindful activity, as extreme as doing, serious meditation practice, to just even going outside in nature. Many of us have done interesting, like crafts or anything that gets you out of your mind and into your body is anything that's a mindful activity. I know we've all had experiences where you get lost in time basically because you're enjoying what you're doing and you're so in the moment.
I
Time
call
just
it being
flies
in the
by.
zone.
Exactly. The zone, the moment. This is essential because when you are there, you are in the present moment. It doesn't matter about yesterday or tomorrow. You're right here, right now. When you're right here, right now, guess what? You get to experience your emotions. So when emotions come up, I invite people to not dip their toe in, but just take a step into it. It's like an energy bubble, okay? An emotion. We label them as good or bad, okay? They're just experiences, okay? When you take a step into that, people think, oh my gosh, I'm opening Pandora's box and I'll never shut the lid. Not so true. Once you take a step in, you're going to take another step. And before you know it, the next step, you're out of it. You've experienced it, you felt it, and it dissipated energetically and it's come to neutrality.
Right, it sort of
Okay.
flows through you instead of you pushing it
Exactly.
down. and
It
holding it
takes it
inside, which
and you know
eventually
how
causes
right.
illness.
And the thing is, it takes so much energy to keep things at bay. It's like being in react mode all the time. And, there's I love the visual of the whack-a-mole thing at the fair. Everybody's probably familiar with it. The mole comes up, you get this big hammer, whack, come someplace else, whack, whack, whack. So this is what we are like. We're reactive instead of being contemplative and how could I say it? Just contemplative and observant and witnessing instead of reacting. It's like responding instead of reacting.
Yeah, and I
Okay.
I can totally relate with that being in your head, just thoughts swirling. I always have my to-do list and what have I done? What have I not done? What am I doing tomorrow? What am I doing next week? What am I
I
doing next
know.
year?
We're
And
you
we're
know,
out of our bodies. It's just all in our heads, and that causes stress for sure. But I think one of the things that holds a lot of people back is what you touched on is getting in touch with those emotions can be scary.
yes, they
It can
can.
be uncomfortable because, the ones that we label quote bad, that sometimes they don't feel good. They're uncomfortable. If you have anger, if you have grief, if you have, anxiety, or maybe there's like a situation you need to be dealing with and you're not, and you're trying to avoid it, or whatever
Hmm.
it is, we tend to want to stay in our head because it's a lot easier to do that. It's easier to check things off on a list than it is to go within and process and feel.
And Sarah, it's not for, going, taking a dive within is not for the weak of heart. Okay. It's just like it takes courage and being brave to do that. And you have to want that. You have to be ready for that because sometimes when you hit your wall and, life is happening and you're just miserable or you're sick or maybe your world is falling apart, either relationships, losing a job, it's just like sometimes those are the pivotal moments where what you had been doing before is no longer working and you know that, but it's just like but you don't have a reference point as to where to go next. That's where it's time to come within.
And I think what you said earlier is an important point. You don't have to go all in. You don't have to dive completely deep. We're worried that if we dip our toe in, then we're going down that rabbit hole and we're just going to be stuck in there forever. But I think, we all deal with these things at our own pace. And
Absolutely.
we'll only deal it is important to take that first step. It is important to step over the threshold of forcing your emotions down and not ever allowing them to be processed and felt and working through them. But that being said, you can do a little at a time. It doesn't have to be this huge, scary thing, especially if you're not
Absolutely.
used to it and you're new to, I
Hmm.
have a lot of my clients who eat their emotions,
Yep.
when they feel, and that's the reason a lot of people struggle with late night snacking is because in the evenings when things wind down and it's quiet and your chores are done for the day, you don't have anything to occupy your mind, and your emotions that have been sitting there simmering start to want to come up and it feels uncomfortable. So a lot of people will reach for food.
Oh, absolutely. And just to piggyback on what you're saying, Sarah, it's baby steps. I always tell people, I say, you have an elephant you're dealing with. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Baby steps. You got to be kind to yourself and not beat yourself up and just have a lot more compassion for yourself. Because so often we are so difficult and hard on ourselves. We're nicer to a stranger on the street than we are to ourselves, you
Oh,
know?
that's for sure. That inner critic
Yeah.
can be brutal.
That self-talk is just, it's no bueno. It's not good because believe it or not, I know this is a little, but I'm going to add this because I think it's important that people know this. Self-talk, it's like labeling this vessel. Okay. So know that our physical bodies are at least 70, 75% water. Okay. There was an amazing scientist by the name of Dr. Masaru Emoto who actually studied water, and you could look him up online. He probably passed away about 10 years ago, but this man was a pioneer of studying the molecular composition of water. And when you labeled water like he did, and he would freeze that labeled container of water and look under the microscope of what the crystal formations were. Of course, when you label something love, appreciation, the crystal formations were symmetrical and beautiful. But when you label it like negative, like war, I hate you, um, anger, you look at you look at the crystalline formations under a microscope. They were fragmented, non-symmetrical, and they weren't even formed. So it's very telling, knowing that if that's happening and you could see that through his work. What is it doing? When you're saying those not so nice things to yourself, you're changing your whole physical body chemistry.
Yeah, you're
Something to think about.
energetically yeah, the
Yeah,
energy that you are putting out actually affects
yeah.
the physical things around you and your body. So
Absolutely. What's happening inside as well. I mean, to
right.
me, when I saw that, that was a game changer for me because it's just like, oh my God, how many of us, are labeling ourselves this? No matter, it seems like something so simple like that is easy to change and shift. You have to catch yourself. When you feel like you are going down the rabbit hole, you're in control. You could realize, oh my God, this is what I'm saying to myself. Just stop yourself and say, no, that's not true. I love myself. I appreciate myself. I'm doing a good job.
Yeah. So, basically what you're saying is two things that can really affect your physical health are the way that you talk to yourself and whether or not you are processing emotions.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I
There's
want to
other
talk
things too.
yeah, yeah.
But,
I
those are
wanted
like the
to
two,
I
those are
wanted
like, I would say, the major things.
I wanted to
Yeah.
ask you about one other thing because we've had a discussion about it previously, and that is your intuition.
Ah, yes.
Because that's always there for us. And I have been, a work in progress, but over the past probably 5 to 10 years, I've really been paying a lot more attention to my intuition and where it's guiding me. And, some people call it God, some people call it the universe, some people call it intuition. For me, it's all the same thing. It's
I agree.
messages of who am
Yep.
I? What am I meant to do? Where is my life leading me? What is my purpose? And you and I spoke and we were talking about when you don't slow down, when you don't come into your body, when you don't process whatever's going on, you're missing out on that internal wisdom that is there with you all the time.
I totally agree with you on that, Sarah. You said that very well. It's very true. I also feel that many of us, all of us are intuitive, okay? It's like a continuum. Either it's well developed or it's in, neophyte stages of development, but we all have that. And for those of us who, believe in past lives or whatever, you probably have used it before in another lifetime, time, or place. Another conversation. But the point I'm making is this. This is like innate wisdom. It's that little voice you hear. And I agree with you. It could be your higher self. It could be God's spark. It could be whatever that is to you. It's pretty much interchangeably the same thing, but it's that inner wisdom and inner knowing that's all part of our sovereign beingness, part of our soul. Okay. Too often we know the answers, but we don't trust that enough. And we give that power away to something outside of ourselves to get the answers. In healthcare, I see this a lot because of just the way that model has been um, formulated and how people have experienced that. It's like they believe, a person, you have everything you need to know about your health and wellness within yourself if you're able to access that. You have to be in your body to do that. You have to be in the present moment because that's where you are connected the most and most aligned. So when you doubt that or you don't trust that, a lot of times, you have that gut feeling you shouldn't do something, but you ignore it and you do counter to it. We all have had in situations like that, and you're like, I should have listened to myself. Well, it's true. Even with your health and wellness, if something feels off and you go to the doctor and the doctor's kind of blowing you off, continue to trust yourself. And, if the person that you're working with isn't aligned with you, it's okay to fire them and get another one. It should be finding a doctor is like dating, folks. If it doesn't click, it's not the right person. Okay. So you've lived in your Taj Mahal your whole entire life. So you kind of know the ins and outs of your physical body. And if it's screaming at you, don't do something, but the doctor's saying you need to do this, trust this over that. Because what your inner wisdom is telling you is communicating to you. There may be a different possibility or a different way. And just when you're in that zone, so to say, or you're able to trust that and have and rely on that on a very, I would say 100% of the time, and it's accurate.
I could not agree more, and I
Yeah.
actually experienced that myself because, as you know, I'm a breast cancer survivor, and I
Right.
had had a mammogram that came back normal a month previous to my diagnosis.
Mm,
And I kept feeling uncomfortable. I had a lump that they told me was a cyst, and but it was starting to hurt and almost be painful. And I just kept thinking, something's not right. And they had said, yes, they're painful and they grow and, blah, 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 blah. But I kept feeling like, no, this isn't right. This isn't, I need to do
mhm.
something. I need to do
Yeah.
something. So I went back and I went back a few different times, really to probably 3 different appointments before I was able to get the ultrasound and the biopsy that showed that it was
Yeah.
cancer. And so if I had not followed my intuition, who knows how long it might have gone on and been able to
Ab-
progress. So I saved my own life by listening. And I
Absolutely.
hear stories
Yeah.
about this over and over and over again. So it's not just with healthcare that you need to listen. It can be so many different parts of
Oh
your
my God.
life.
It's yes. One thing you have to remember, it's like we are very good at compartmentalizing things that are separate, but I have news for you. Life is not in containers like this. It's a matrix. Everything's interconnected in ways you have no idea. And as an intuitive person, I see things in multiple dimensions. So it's just like that's just the way it is. And taking that a step in the direction of medicine, and historically you look at the way Western medicine is situated, it's like they separate systems into boxes, like the respiratory system, the circulatory system, the GI system, the musculoskeletal. And it's just like it's almost like the parts don't talk to each other, but they do,
But
and
they
they
do.
forget
They
that
all
component
depend
of it.
on each other.
They
Yes.
do. It's just crazy, and things are connected in ways people have no idea and
Yeah.
that they still haven't yet discovered. Okay. So, it's just an interesting observation to witness this.
Well, I love that you are taking into consideration the whole person for
Yeah.
people's wellness. And I think it's something that needs to really be brought to our attention. I do nutrition and fitness, but I also take it to the next level of you've got to pay attention to how you're feeling, dealing with your emotions, what your inner critic is saying. And so you and I we're just right on board with that
We
same,
are, and
it's all these different parts working together. So thank you. I love, I love what you're doing. And I wanted to mention that Dolores also has a podcast, which I was a guest on recently, called Healing in Ways You Never Thought Possible. And if you want to learn more about her, you can go to drdoloresfazzino.com. And I'm also going to put a link to her website and different ways that you can find her here in the show notes. And Dolores, I just want to thank you so much. I appreciate you being here.
Sarah, thank you so much. And, it was a pleasure. And you know what? Moving forward, we are on the right path. This is the way healthcare will be in the future.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so, so much. And thank you, everybody, for being here and listening in. And until next time, I will see you then.